A Gen X man can sit in his car for 3 minutes before walking into his own house. Not because he hates his family, because for 3 minutes, nobody needs anything from him yet. His phone lights up. "Are you okay?" He looks at it, types nothing, deletes tired, deletes overwhelmed, then sends the sentence he learned before he had language for it. "I'm fine, not fine. Trained. Trained to keep the room calm. Trained to make the need smaller. Trained to turn pain into something other people don't have to deal with." And if you grew up around Gen X, you know this sentence. Your father says it while clearly exhausted. Your mother says it while carrying 3 people's lives in her head. Your co-worker says it while quietly fixing a disaster nobody else noticed. Your older sibling says it after disappearing for a few days, then coming back like nothing happened. They don't collapse. They don't announce the wound. They keep moving. For a long time, people called that strength. Some of it was, but some of it was adaptation. Many of them did need people. They just learned early that needing someone could become a risk. By the end of this video, you'll understand why "I'm fine" is not just a phrase for Gen X. It is a survival response they learned before they knew how to ask for help. For people born at the edge of the analog world, independence was not a lifestyle. It was the weather they grew up in. To understand that, begin with a house, not a dramatic house, just a quiet one. A child gets off the school bus. There is no parent at the door. No text saying, "Are you home?" No camera notification, no tracking app, no adult voice asking how the day went. Just a key, maybe on a string, maybe under the mat, maybe hidden in the place everyone knows. The child opens the door and walks into silence. The refrigerator hums, the TV turns on, the cereal box comes out. Homework gets done or doesn't. Fear appears and gets swallowed. Loneliness appears and gets renamed as normal. Somewhere in that silence, the nervous system learns a rule. Nobody is automatically coming. That sounds harsh. For many of them, it didn't feel like tragedy at the time. It felt like life. Parents were working. Divorce was rising. Families were changing. Adult life was getting more complicated, and the culture had not yet built the language for emotional supervision. So millions of children became small adults before anyone called it a problem. They made food, watched younger siblings, figured out what to do when something broke, learned which adult mood meant don't ask, learned when to stay quiet, learned how to not turn loneliness into a scene. Independence does not always begin as confidence. Sometimes it begins as the death of an expectation. A child reaches enough times and eventually learns to stop reaching. The need does not disappear. The reaching starts to feel useless. Psychologists call these early maps internal working models, the private predictions children build about whether closeness brings comfort, delay, rejection, or nothing at all. Bowlby and Ainsworth helped show that attachment is not just about love. It is about what a child learns to expect when they reach. For a latchkey kid, this was not theory. It was the sound of an empty house after school. The body can learn the pattern before the mind can explain it. When I need something, check whether needing it is safe. When help is inconsistent, delayed, or emotionally unavailable, the brain signs a quiet contract. Asking is risky. Needing is expensive. Next time, try silence first. Adult independence can look like confidence while still functioning like an old survival strategy. Gen X learned to become low maintenance. They did not always ask, "What do I feel?" They asked, "What needs to be done?" That question made them capable. It also made them lonely, because handling something and being unable to ask for help with it are not the same thing. You can hear it in the little phrases. "It's fine. Could be worse. I'll deal with it. No big deal." They sound casual. They are often emotional firewalls, a way of giving you enough information to stop asking, but not enough to actually enter. For many Gen Xers, being fully seen does not feel comforting. it feels exposed, and exposure has a history. They grew up in a world where feelings were often treated like inconvenience. Sadness was weakness, anxiety was sensitivity, fear was drama, need was something you handled privately. So they studied the rules. If crying makes people uncomfortable, don't cry. If asking creates disappointment, don't ask. If needing too much makes you a burden, need less. If nobody knows you are struggling, nobody can reject you for struggling. People call this emotional maturity because it is quiet. But quiet is not always regulated. Sometimes quiet only means the feeling was made small enough to avoid becoming a problem. There is a behavioral reason the pattern survives. Every time a person says, "I'm fine," instead of "I need help," something happens immediately. The room stays calm. Nobody asks difficult questions. Nobody sees the need. Nobody gets the chance to disappoint them. That is the short-term reward. In behavioral psychology, avoidance is reinforced when the uncomfortable action disappears and the body feels relief. Avoidance is powerful because it pays immediately and charges interest later. You avoid the uncomfortable sentence, your anxiety drops. The brain remembers the drop, not the long-term cost. So the next time the same discomfort appears, the brain chooses the same exit faster. For Gen X, the exit often looked responsible from the outside. Don't ask, don't explain, don't need too much, handle it. The stress response does not care whether the danger is physical or social. It only knows the body feels exposed. A message like, "I'm fine," lowers that exposure fast. The threat of rejection disappears for a moment. The conversation stays controlled. The nervous system reads the drop in tension as relief. And the brain is very good at repeating whatever makes danger feel smaller. Silence avoids rejection. Competence avoids shame. Privacy avoids being seen too clearly. The pressure drops for 10 seconds. The cost arrives later, in the jaw, in the sleep, in the sudden need to disappear for a few hours without explaining why. Then comes the paradox. Gen X will often help others without hesitation. They will fix your car, pick you up at the airport, stay late to solve the problem, and show up when everyone else is still talking about showing up. But when they are the ones drowning, they vanish into competence. They know how to be useful. They don't always know how to be held. That is why don't you just ask, is the wrong question. For many Gen Xers, asking is not a simple action. It is a nervous system event. It can feel like admitting defeat. It can feel like losing control. It can feel like giving someone else power over your disappointment. If you ask and they say no, now you know. If you ask and they say yes, now you owe. If you ask and they help badly, now you have to manage their help too. So it becomes easier to do it alone. Again, like always. The same thing can happen to a Gen X woman sitting at the kitchen table after everyone has gone to bed. The school email is open. The work tab is still open. Her mother's medical appointment is written on a sticky note. There is a cup of coffee she reheated twice and never drank. Someone texts, "Need anything?" She looks around at a life full of needs, then writes, "No, I'm good," because the real answer would be too large, and somewhere inside her, an old rule still runs. Do not become another thing someone has to deal with. Shame slips in through that gap, because asking for help does not only reveal a problem, it reveals the part of you that still hoped someone would care. And that part can feel dangerous, especially if life taught you to protect it. For Gen X, privacy is not just a preference, it is shelter. They grew up before every mistake had a permanent digital record, before pain became content, before people proved their lives by broadcasting them. So, visibility can feel less like connection and more like exposure. The less people know, the less they can use. The less they see, the less they can judge. The less you reveal, the less there is to lose. That worldview can make someone look detached. But detachment is not always lack of feeling. Sometimes detachment is how a person keeps feeling from flooding the room. Sarcasm works the same way. Gen X learned to turn pain sideways, a joke instead of a confession, a shrug instead of fear, a sarcastic line instead of the sentence, "That actually hurt me," living the dream. Translation, "I am exhausted." Another day in paradise. Translation, please do not ask a follow-up question unless you actually mean it. This does not mean they feel less. Often, it means they learn to show less. And now, many of them are in the most pressured years of their lives. Old enough to have aging parents. Young enough to still be working hard, often supporting children, partners, teams, households, systems. The bridge generation has become the support beam. They are helping parents navigate technology, helping kids navigate adulthood, helping workplaces survive change, helping everyone else stay functional. And still, when asked how they are, the answer comes automatically. I'm fine. The habit that got them through an empty house can misfire inside a full life. A partner asks, "What's wrong?" The old system hears, "You're about to become too much." Privacy becomes distance. Competence becomes invisibility. "I'm fine" stops being protection and starts becoming a locked door. Gen X is not strong because they never needed help. They are strong because many of them learned to live without help before they should have had to. But a tool built for an empty house can become dangerous in a full life. Many of them did not just learn to be alone. They learned to call that loneliness strength. For Gen X, the hardest sentence was never, "I survived." They already proved that. The harder sentence is, "I don't want to survive this alone." Because at some point, needing no one stops being freedom. It becomes the last room of the empty house, and the hardest part is realizing the door was locked from the inside.